WNBA is the Indiana Fever are 4-4. They're 4-4 against these teams. So it's not like they've done bad. And I'm out here, I'm going to be agreeing with Robin. So I listened to a little bit of Robin's stream today, talking about his controversial Fever Lynx statement. And look, I think the Lynx are the best team in the league. Depth-wise, I think the Lynx are the best. And I think after the Lynx, there are a million flaws to every other team. Like the Indiana Fever.
This needs to be said plainly. It's strange that stating an opinion backed by facts and by what's actually visible on the court has become controversial. The take here is that the Indiana Fever are the second best team in the WNBA. People point out they're currently the 6th seed, but they're only a game and a half back from the 2 spot. Against the Aces, they're 2-0. Against 2 other top teams, they're 1-2, and against another pair, they're 0-1. Combine all those results against the teams considered part of this second-best conversation, and the Fever sit at 4-4. That's not a bad record at all against strong competition.
Like the Indiana Fever are a severely flawed roster. There is no question about that. They are flawed. The Aces have 0 depth. Like, the Aces are starting Stephanie Talbot, who is the worst starter in any of these teams, and the Fever start Lexi Hull. And that's a bad showing for Stephanie Talbot. I'm shocked that we're still seeing Kirsten Bell playing minutes. I'm surprised that we're not seeing Pasok get more of a run-in, but it is what it is.
This lines up with something Robin said recently on stream, and it's hard to disagree. The Lynx are the best team in the league, full stop, mainly because of their depth. After that though, every other team has serious holes. The Fever roster is deeply flawed, no argument there. The Aces have almost no bench depth, starting a player who's arguably the weakest starter among all these contenders. Compare that to the Fever starting Lexi Hull, and it's not a great look for the Aces situation. It's honestly surprising certain bench players are still getting minutes for Las Vegas, while others barely get used at all.
So we're not seeing Pasok get more of a run-in, but it is what it is. She was never really brought into play this year anyway. For Atlanta, you are so reliant on Ryan Howard or Alicia Gray, who are streaky, getting hot on any given day. You are reliant on 2 inconsistent scorers, and your best player this season has been Angel Reese. I don't care about net points. I've been watching these games. When it matters, their best player has been Angel Reese. Dallas.
Atlanta leans heavily on 2 streaky scorers who run hot and cold, and their most consistent presence this year has arguably been the injury report. Net rating numbers aside, watching these games closely tells the real story. Dallas struggles badly on defense, and honestly the Fever have defensive issues too at times, with one of their bigs ranking among the weakest defenders in the league. Still, Dallas is worse defensively than Indiana overall. The Fever just play at a faster pace and give up points at a wild rate, but they also score at a historic clip to match it. Every team below Minnesota has real weaknesses, but the Lynx are simply on another level.
Cannot play defense. I'll make the argument that at times the Fever don't play defense. Like, Jess Shepard is one of the worst defenders in the league. Dallas are a worse defensive team than the Indiana Fever when it comes down to it. The Fever just play faster. And the Fever give up points at a historic rate. That being said, they score at a historic rate. So there's all flaws with these teams.
Playoff outcomes will likely hinge on matchups more than seeding. Washington might actually match up better against Minnesota than the so-called top teams do. And New York remains a total wild card, dealing with injuries and struggling against Seattle, while Atlanta is getting blown out by Vegas. Unpredictable things keep happening around the league.
All flaws with these teams. But the Lynx are out on their own. And I think a lot of the playoffs is going to come down to matchups. I think a team like the Washington Mystics match up better to Minnesota than any of these top teams do. I really think they do. And then you just never know what's going to happen with the New York Liberty. You really, really don't. Like, the Liberty are currently, like, John Quell seems to be hurt right now.
One thing stood out from a recent Fever game against Minnesota. Courtney Williams played very well, but Indiana dug themselves into an early hole during a stretch where their bench unit looked completely lost on both ends. Outside of that stretch, they were competitive all the way into the fourth quarter. The real story, though, was fatigue. Indiana had fresher legs, coming off more rest, while Minnesota was clearly gassed after a tough stretch. One of Minnesota's guards looked exhausted, another was in foul trouble, and their veteran guard was worn down too. Their forward barely made an impact, finishing with a quiet 18 points that didn't feel impactful at all.
Like John Quell seems to be hurt right now. They're struggling against the Seattle Storm. While the Dream are getting pummeled by the Aces. These type of things happen. But the one thing that I watched yesterday, and I fully stand by, is that the Indiana Fever at the end of that game, yes, Courtney Williams executed extremely well. I think if the Indiana Fever didn't build themselves...
It doesn't seem like Minnesota's opponents can consistently keep pace with Indiana's scoring bursts, and honestly, most teams in the league can't either. The one exception might be Golden State, whose unusual defensive style could genuinely slow Indiana down. Outside of Minnesota, there's no team in this league that looks clearly superior to the rest of the playoff field. First-round matchups feel wide open across the board. If Indiana lands the 2 seed and draws a healthy New York squad using their long zone defense, that's a legitimately difficult series, especially once their full rotation is healthy and their front court length gets deployed properly. Indiana has struggled against zone looks in the past.
Indiana Fever didn't build themselves a deficit in the weird Maisha Hines-Allen and Raven Johnson minutes where they just looked like they didn't know how to play basketball. Other than that, even up to the fourth quarter, they were winning those minutes. But the thing is, I'm going to be real here. The Indiana Fever had more legs. They were tired. They were on a road trip. They had a 34-hour break between games. They were the team.
Atlanta at least has one player who's trustworthy in the playoffs, but the rest of the roster is questionable. Dallas doesn't feel playoff ready either, more like a team built for regular season success. Their star duo will likely be fine individually, but as a unit this reads as a regular season squad. Their center is likely to get exposed in the postseason due to defensive limitations and heavy reliance on touches, similar to what happened last year, even though she'll probably still make an all-league team based on individual stats. If ranked at 4, Golden State would be the team Indiana should try hardest to avoid by climbing to the 6th seed instead. Indiana likely beats both the Dream and the Aces in a series and would be favored in any first-round matchup except against Golden State. As for who the Valkyries should worry about, they'd only be favored against Indiana and Dallas realistically. Against everyone else, including the Dream, Mystics, and even the Aces, other outcomes seem more likely, with New York ironically favored over Golden State in that scenario.
34-hour break between games. They were the team that had the better legs. And you could see with Minnesota, it was hitting them. Like, Olivia Miles was gassed. Courtney Williams was not. In fairness to Courtney Williams, she was stepping up. But Tash Howard was in foul trouble. Miles was completely gassed. Kayla McBride was gassed. Nia Coffey, again, didn't do much in that game. Fee was anonymous. Fee was genuinely...
The Aces could absolutely make the finals given their playoff experience, or they could bow out early. That's how tight the race...
Against Stephanie White, guys. Caitlin Clark played 29 minutes. She had a record-breaking performance in 29 minutes. She wasn't supposed to play 29 minutes. Caitlin Clark refused to come out the game. Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever were slotted to take her out, and she said, damn that, I'm not coming out. I'm not coming out of this game. This is the Clark show. I got to give the people what they want, and I'm not coming out of this game. Caitlin Clark finally stepping up and standing up for herself against this.
The numbers support the case that Indiana belongs in the conversation for second-best team in the league, if not outright holding that spot. Watching them closely, though, this team still feels unfinished compared to others whose identity is already fully clear. Indiana seems like the only team in the league with real untapped potential remaining, mainly because their three best players haven't consistently figured out how to function together for long stretches across multiple games. When looking at lineup data, one star paired with the second guard without the center, or the star alone without either teammate, or the two guards together without the center, all rank near the top of the league in net rating. When none of the three play, Indiana looks like one of the worst teams in league history. But when all three share the floor together, the net rating flattens out to roughly even, and lineups featuring the star and the center, without the second guard, have actually struggled. Once that chemistry clicks, there's another gear this team hasn't reached yet.
Finally stepping up and standing up for herself against this sabotage coaching staff, against this sabotage organization, and refused to come out in the fourth quarter when she surpassed her minutes restriction. We got to get into it, man. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit the bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. Let's get right into things. So Caitlin Clark was slotted to come out at the 25-minute mark, and she refused. Okay, and it's comments like this that let you know that Iowa CC, that demon, that killer.
Interestingly, last season featured strong assist numbers from the star point guard to the center, and this year people will point to the center's rising scoring numbers, including more three-point attempts, as proof of growth. But there's a real argument that Indiana failed to fully capitalize on the center becoming a stretch four type player. She's less physical in the post than before, not as bulky, but arguably more versatile now. The issue is the front office never brought in a true starting big to complement that shift, though it's fair to ask whether that ideal player was ever realistically available. There was buzz about signing a big-name free agent to a max contract, but avoiding that deal looks like the right call in hindsight, similar to another free agent target who also struggled badly this season despite looking appealing on paper.
Demon, that killer, is still in there, okay? Let's get to this quote real quick before we get to the footage of what she had to say. She said, "I know what I'm capable of, and I know what this team is capable of, and it's my job to help us win and be the best team in the WNBA, and I don't think we're there yet, so it's my responsibility to help us get there, so we'll keep working." Caitlin Clark understands fully that she is capable of going into GOAT mode, God mode, at any given.
Bottom line, the original point stands. Indiana is the second best team in the league, and a recent matchup against Minnesota featured the two strongest teams in the WNBA, with Minnesota edging it out as the better team that day. Despite how close the game was, the officiating wasn't really the deciding factor. It's hard to point to a single early possession and claim that one different call would have flipped the entire outcome. Basketball isn't like soccer, where one goal changes everything. A single made or missed shot in the first quarter doesn't dictate the final result, because game flow constantly shifts as both teams adjust to the score and to each other throughout the game. That matchup felt like watching the best team in the league face the second best team and also the most dangerous team in the league. The Aces deserve mention too as an extremely dangerous squad, given a recent performance where their top four scorers combined for strong, efficient numbers across the board with a big plus-minus. Their star forward remains one of the greatest to ever play the position in her prime, and their guard is finally getting recognized as a true point guard, arguably one of the most underrated players in league history after years of being overshadowed by more famous teammates. Their bench, though, is thin, which will cause problems in longer series.
Mode at any given moment. All she needs is Stephanie White to get the hell out the way and Kelsey Mitchell to play her role off ball and pass the ball every once in a while. Now, let's get to what Caitlin Clark had to say about her coming out in the fourth quarter. Here it says, the minutes restriction was 25 minutes. Caitlin Clark played about 30. She went against the coaching staff. She went against the damn training staff. I'm not coming out in the fourth quarter. I'll be damned if I sit on the bench and watch us lose.
Still, the feeling here is that Indiana is like a boxing fighter who, no matter how far behind on the scorecards, always has knockout power in their hands thanks to their two elite scorers. Minnesota, by contrast, plays like a technical, disciplined fighter who wins by grinding out rounds and absorbing punches rather than looking for a finish. They'll go on scoring runs and simply outlast opponents. Indiana plays for the knockout. Yes, they can blow big leads, that's well documented, but the firepower to end a game in an instant is unmatched around the league. So yes, the agreement stands. Robin had it right. Caitlin Clark delivered an incredible, record-setting performance on the court.
And watch us lose this game. We had a 12-point lead when I went out in the third and in the second, and y'all blew it with me on the bench. I'm not coming out. Let's take a look at what Caitlin Clark had to say.
Minutes restriction the last couple of nights. You got 25 tonight. Was there any conversation about coming out of that game, or you kind of like don't even come in?
Steph knows better than that. Trainers know better than that. They would get an earful.
She said Stephanie White know better than that. The trainers know better than that. I would have tore their.
This is a genuinely encouraging development. Clark is finally pushing back and asserting herself, something many fans have wanted to see for a while. She's showing pushback against Stephanie White.
No better than that. I would have tore their ass up. I'd have gave them an earful. People would have been getting cussed out if they would have tried to pull me up. She wasn't going for it. This is Caitlin Clark standing on business, giving them that look. I don't give a damn what them minutes. They say 25 minutes up there on the Jumbotron. I dare you to sub me out. I'm going to cuss all of y'all out on this sideline. Y'all thought I made news with the referee. Y'all thought I went off on the referee. Sub me out of this game because of a minutes restriction and see what I do to y'all on this sideline. We'll really make some.
Clark was originally set to be pulled at the 25-minute mark, and she declined. Comments like these prove that the competitive fire from her Iowa days is still very much alive. Before getting to footage, here's what she said. She understands what she's capable of and what her team can accomplish. She sees it as her job to help the team win and become the league's best. They aren't there yet, and she feels responsible for getting them there, so the work continues. Clark clearly knows she can flip into an unstoppable gear whenever needed. She just needs her coach to step back and her backcourt partner Kelsey Mitchell to focus more on facilitating. Now to her comments about staying in for the fourth quarter. Her minutes limit was set at 25, but she ended up playing closer to 30. She overruled both the coaching staff and the medical staff. She made clear she wasn't going to sit and watch the team lose. The team had built a 12-point cushion earlier while she was resting, only to see it disappear. She wasn't willing to sit again.
This sideline, we'll really make some headlines around this motherfucker.
Well, I told Steph at halftime, like, I felt really good, and I didn't want to lose this game, and, you know, hopefully I'm going to do everything I can tonight to take care of my body, and then we get back out at it tomorrow. But like I said, like, I can trust all the work that I put in on my body, and, you know, I've spent a ton of time on it, and I trust the people around me that have really helped me, and, you know, I always find confidence in that, so I know I'm doing all the right things, and there was no way I was ever coming out of the game in the fourth quarter.
Here's what she said directly. Asked whether there was any discussion about pulling her given the recent minutes restriction, or whether staff avoided the topic entirely, she replied that the staff and trainers know better than to try that with her. They'd have heard about it. She essentially said Stephanie White and the training staff know not to attempt that she would have let them have it, and that anyone who tried to sub her out would have gotten an earful. She wasn't backing down. This was Clark making her position crystal clear. She basically communicated, I don't care what the scoreboard says about a 25-minute cap. Try pulling me and see what happens on that sideline. People thought her exchange with the referee made news. Try subbing her out over a minutes restriction and see what really happens. She also mentioned telling head coach Stephanie White at halftime that she felt good and didn't want to lose the game, that she'd do what it takes, even if it meant not fully prioritizing recovery, and that she'd pick things back up the next day. She trusts the training and preparation she's put into her body, along with the people supporting her, and that confidence reassures her she's doing things right. There was no scenario where she was leaving that fourth quarter. She said she'd have played on one leg if she had to. So she told her head coach at halftime, essentially, that 25-minute cap doesn't matter to me. I'm not following it tonight. Don't even try to stop me at 25 minutes. Or I will let the training staff know exactly how I feel. This is Clark finally holding her ground. It's a great moment to see.
I was ever coming out of the game in the fourth quarter, it didn't matter. I would play with one leg.
So she let Stephanie White know at halftime, I don't give a damn what that 25-minute restriction is. I'm not entertaining it. I'm not about to play this game with y'all. I am not playing this game with y'all at all. Don't you dare try to stop my minutes at 25. Don't you dare. I'm going to cuss you out. I'm going to cuss that training staff out. This is Caitlin Clark finally putting like standing on business.
Now for her thoughts on a 45-point, 10-assist night that set franchise records. Combined with Kelsey Mitchell's output, the pair scored 75 points total, a franchise best. Asked how the game felt, Clark said some nights she just senses beforehand that things are going to click, and this felt like one of those, especially after missing a couple weeks and needing to find her rhythm again. She saw it as a chance to be aggressive early, especially with a teammate out, so she knew she had to raise her level. She got to the free throw line often, and finally saw calls go her way at the line. She acknowledged the team's defense was rough at times, but praised the group's fight, noting they trailed by 6 to 8 points with about 4 minutes left and kept finding ways to claw back. She credited teammates who stepped up in a starter's absence, singling out a strong performance from a teammate referred to as KK. Asked when she first sensed she'd have a big night, she said it's about believing beforehand and visualizing that kind of performance. She noted things won't always go smoothly. There will be cold stretches, but you can't get discouraged. She trusts her preparation and the people who believe in her, and most of all believes in herself. When things aren't going well, she said, you just have to dig in and find ways to help the team improve, which is always her goal. Asked to describe a tied game sequence late in the contest where she scrambled after a deflection near midcourt for her 41st point, she explained the opponent disrupted their after-timeout play with good defense. She got a hand on a loose ball, chased it down, and forced a deflection, unsure if contact occurred, but noting the official likely wasn't positioned to make the call either way. She said she just tried to make a heads-up play, then wanted the inbound to happen quickly so she could push tempo before the defense could set. A situation she actually prefers because it lets her play more freely compared to a scripted sideline play. After some good defensive plays by her opponent, she found space, stepped back to her left, and made the shot. Asked about her defensive impact given the 4 steals and 2 blocks she recorded, which is unusual for her, she said it felt good but that she could have played better overall, especially in the first half when the opposing guards got downhill on her a bit too easily. She praised the opposing team's backcourt speed and frontcourt talent, and said the group needed better help defense and rotations. She noted the opponent has a strong young roster that will be a tough matchup for years to come, particularly tricky without a key defensive anchor on their own roster, whose communication and rebounding she praised. She said several teammates stepped up in that player's absence, and that the team's defense only really locked in late in the fourth quarter, but she'll take the win regardless. It was a complete performance from Clark. Blocks, rebounds, steals, assists, and scoring all in one night.